hands folded before the emperor. Bow your head to show deference. The handmaidens stand side by side. Lower your gaze and remain silent until the emperor speaks. Never question any command. Wherever the emperor goes, you must follow closely. Cleton walked through the crowd, his head tilted, looking down. Always maintain a distance of 3 steps. Emilia lowered her eyelids, standing by the window where light and shadow intertwined. Cleton A. Locaso, the young emperor. His swordsmanship and appearance are equally outstanding. He is the core of the empire's power. Emilia approached his side, reaching out to touch the black cape. Please allow me to take your cloak. Your Majesty. Cleton glanced sideways. This woman is a capable maid. She always anticipates the emperor's every need. Or rather, he has begun to crave everything she prepares. Cleton sat back in the armchair, reaching for the desk to check the documents first. Emilia was already holding the heavy papers, presenting them to him. Cleton stared at the stack of official documents. How can she maintain such a calm expression? Does she read minds? How did she know I wanted these documents? I only gave the order yesterday. An ordinary servant would never react this way. A maid kneeling on the floor, falling down the stairs because of His Majesty's handsome appearance, even breaking a leg. That's the normal reaction. Cleton sat behind the desk, resting his chin on one hand. His gaze went over the stacked documents, staring at the woman before him. My maid has committed 3 sins. First, she occupies the busy emperor's thoughts. Second, she occasionally offends my senses. And finally, the gravest sin of all, she hasn't fallen in love with me. Emilia, holding the documents, tilted her head, watching the emperor's strange behavior. Cleton abruptly turned his head, raising a hand to cover his mouth and nose, letting out a light cough to hide his embarrassment. I'm going to review the documents now. This woman is harder to deal with than a conquest mission. Emilia stood expressionlessly, holding a high stack of papers. Her gaze remained fixed straight ahead. Cleton sat at the desk, propping his chin on one hand, watching her retreating back. Emilia walked into the distance holding the documents, her steps unwavering. It's the same today. A month ago, on the day of the coronation ceremony, ceremonial cannons exploded above the palace. Confetti scattered in the air. Congratulations on His Majesty's ascension. An elderly official smiled and tilted his head, introducing the attendants to the new emperor. These are all descendants of nobles, possessing the upbringing and grace befitting Your Majesty. Cleton nodded slightly to show he understood. It is our honor to serve you, Your Majesty. Cleton remained expressionless, gazing forward, letting the praises surround him. His Majesty is truly exceptionally handsome. Congratulations on your ascension. The nobles were staring at the emperor with greedy eyes. This had crossed the line of impropriety. It was practically a desecration of the royal family. Considering His Majesty's personality, this was perhaps a small mercy in a tragedy. Cleton's lips curled slightly into a smile. A scream erupted from the crowd. The chief steward helplessly lowered his eyelids. His Majesty has always been like this. He'll probably turn a blind eye to it, letting this fanaticism continue to spread. Praises rose and fell behind him. A youthful and superior appearance. Martial arts that would put a sword master to shame. It would be strange not to fall in love with him. Those servants. Since His Majesty won't be interacting with them, we've omitted the introductions. Cleton strode forward, his black boots stepping across the floor, heading straight for a corner. Cleton stopped in front of her, looking down at the woman. The chief steward stepped aside to introduce her. This is the daughter of the frontier count of Valletta, Miss Emilia. Did you see her during your tour of the north? Cleton tilted his head up slightly, his gaze sweeping over her coldly. No, I've never seen her. Cleton turned abruptly, his red cape tracing an arc in the air as he strode away. The chief steward stood frozen, watching the emperor's retreating back. As the chief steward, my intuition is screaming. His Majesty is definitely interested in this young lady. Miss Emilia. Starting tomorrow, you will switch duties with Miss Lucia. Emilia listened to the command expressionlessly. You will be responsible for reporting to His Majesty's office and being on standby. Lucia collapsed to the floor, covering her face and screaming. Lucia Lorgade, what is the meaning of this commotion? What should I do? Why has this trial befallen me? Get up immediately, Miss Lucia. This is impossible. That position was supposed to be mine. Watch your words. Do you understand where you are right now? Lucia lay sobbing on the floor. How much have I sacrificed to stay by His Majesty's side? Catching bugs with my bare hands, watering withered flowers, even cleaning the trash in the hallways. Isn't that enough? Emilia lowered her eyelids, letting out a soft reprimand. You have indeed done well, but the decision cannot be changed. Lucia shrieked, Why? Why reject me? How dare you be so insolent before His Majesty? It's simply arrogant and rude. Emilia suddenly looked up, her eyes icy. Cleton froze, blinking his green eyes, staring at the completely transformed Emilia before him. Cleton's body stiffened, cold sweat trickling down his cheek. What is going on? Is she looking at me with that kind of gaze? The next day in the office, the chief steward stood before Emilia. From now on, Miss Emilia, you will no longer have a personal schedule. As we cannot predict His Majesty's working hours, you must be on standby whenever he is awake. Understood. The chief steward raised his white-gloved hand, his expression serious. If there are any problems, report to me immediately. Everything you see and hear in this room is top secret. You must not leak a single word until the day you die. The chief steward stared at Emilia. Recording anything in writing or drawing is strictly forbidden. Your life and the safety of the Valletta family depend on this. Emilia lowered her eyelids, responding softly, As you command, Lord Chief Steward. That was a story from when Cleton was still the crown prince. He was exiled from the capital and banished to the northern frontier for killing the sacred beast that symbolized safety. Cleton stood amidst the raging fire, a broken sword in hand, his back swallowed by the flames. The place of exile was just outside the Valletta territory. That was the land belonging to me, Emilia, of the Valletta family. Considering the people's anger over the crown prince's crime at the time, it's a miracle he sits on the throne today. But for me, this miracle, that is no different from a curse. When the new emperor ascended the throne, the nobles bankrupted their families to present extravagant gifts. Jewels sparkled on magnificent clothes. It was a display of loyalty and a measure of status. The Valletta family had once been the crown prince's watchers, simply because our territory bordered his place of exile. Now, we must offer a more precious sacrifice to appease the emperor's wrath. The Valletta territory is overrun with demonic beasts. The slightest negligence means death. The family had no spare money left. And so, the Valletta family offered their daughter. Yesterday, Cleton signaled for me to become his chief maid. I had already foreseen my fate. Emilia turned her head, letting out a soft sigh. In short, the emperor gave me a stern warning at our first meeting. Black leather boots. They echoed dully on the floor. Cleton stood with his eyes closed, the emerald on his chest reflecting a cold light. The map couldn't be clearer. He had already given a clear warning. He was going to make a move against me, a member of the Valletta family. Cleton's eyes snapped open, his green pupils locking onto the figure below. His gaze was as sharp as a blade. Emilia held her breath, staring into those emotionless eyes. There's no mistaking it. This is Cleton. Step by step, he drew closer. A shadow fell over Emilia's face. This is revenge against the Valletta family. The chief steward stared at Cleton's profile. He only just arrived at the palace yesterday. Is he going to the office now? Does he plan to start work immediately? I've never heard of him being so diligent before. The chief steward bowed, his hands folded before him. We thought you would be resting today, Your Majesty. Cleton strode forward, his cape swaying behind him. That won't be necessary. The empire doesn't stop just because I take a break. The chief steward stood rooted to the spot, watching the emperor's departing back, his eyes welling with tears. When His Majesty Cleton was the crown prince, the word diligence seemed to have been completely erased from his mind. The chief steward stared at the figure behind the desk. The coronation just ended, and he's like a different person. 5 years of exile can truly reshape a man. Cleton sat in a high-backed chair, flipping through the papers in his hand. Sunlight pierced through the curtains, falling on his shoulders. The chief steward straightened his back. I am currently helping Miss Emilia familiarize herself with the surroundings. I will continue her training when you rest this evening. For now, Your Majesty, please give me your instructions. Cleton put down the document, his lips parting slightly to utter a single word. No. Cleton stared ahead. Leave it to me. The chief steward's eyes widened, and he let out a gasp. What did you say? Cleton tilted his head slightly. I will instruct her myself, regarding the layout of my office. The chief steward sucked in a cold breath, leaning back. Has he not changed for the better at all? Does he intend to personally torment the daughter of the Lord of Valletta, using familiarizing her with the office as an excuse to bully her? Half of Cleden's face was cast in shadow. His green pupils slanted downwards, his gaze icy. Emilia looked up, her hazel pupils contracting slightly, staring at the expressionless face above. A suffocating feeling spread through the air. The chief steward's eyes behind his monocle lost focus. His body went rigid. I want to go home. Last night, the day of his ascension, Cleden lay in bed, hands folded on his stomach, exiled from the palace for 5 years. I'm finally back. Because of that crown prince incident, the royal family suffered a tragedy. The north was overrun by a tide of demonic beasts. Cleden drew his sword, repelling the demonic beast attack, proving his ability to protect the empire and its citizens. Thanks to that, I was able to return to the palace and reclaim the throne. But now, heavy official duties await me. I must get to sleep soon for tomorrow. But why did she have that expression then? I've seen that look before. Cleden raised his fingertips to his temples, lost in thought. Exactly the same as 5 years ago. The look etched in those people's eyes. Two nobles stood in the shadows, whispering to each other. Cleden sat on the bed, covering his eyes with his palms. Contempt. That was contempt directed at me. The world has turned a new page now. Perhaps because I quelled the disaster of the demonic beast nest. The people stood in the palace square, raising their hands and cheering. Cleden, Locaso, the one favored by the gods. They erased all memory, as if those vicious curses never existed. The moment I wore the crown, I saw only desire and adoration in their eyes. Everything is back in its place. So what is the deal with Emilia Valletta? Why'd she look at me like that? It was definitely not fear. It was completely different from a reaction to terror. I can't describe it accurately, but it's extremely unpleasant. Disgusting. My intuition tells me that woman is not normal. Cleden leaned back abruptly, his chest heaving. Don't tell me she dares to evaluate me? Evaluate this masterpiece unintentionally created by the gods, possessing a godlike appearance, the physique and beauty of a sword master, wisdom and grace all in one, a perfect being with all masculine virtues. I am His Majesty, Cleden a Locaso. Emilia folded her hands at her waist. May I ask a question? She actually spoke first. This is unbelievable. Before the emperor gave permission, the attendant stood to the side, sweat beading on his forehead. Miss Valletta, are you? Are you trying to display that northern arrogance? Of course not. Perhaps I should leave the room. The attendant stepped back. Emilia Valletta, what on earth does she want to ask? Emilia lowered her eyelids. His gaze is piercing, but I can understand this reaction. I am a Valletta from the north. People from the capital always look down on northerners, seeing us as barbarians from a land of beasts. Besides, His Majesty suffered so much in the north. Seeing me might bring back those terrible memories. Regardless, my goal is to safely complete my 3-year term and then return to Valletta. To do that, I must familiarize myself with the office layout starting today. Perhaps I should explain things clearly to His Majesty and receive formal training from the chief attendant. Emilia closed her eyes, her throat moving slightly. I absolutely cannot blunder around as the chief maid, not even knowing where supplies are kept. If I perform well, His Majesty's aversion to the north might lessen. So, the star I make today is crucial. Emilia opened her eyes, looking straight ahead. If Your Majesty permits, I would like to ask a question. Cleden turned his head, his green eyes narrowing as he stared at the woman before him. Question permitted. Speak. Emilia clasped her hands in front of her, bowing her head in apology. Please forgive my impertinence, but Your Majesty only returned to the palace yesterday. It would be better to leave these trivial matters to the chief steward. There's that unreadable expression again. Cleden tilted his head slightly, his green eyes sweeping over her coldly. Is she thinking a subject who hasn't been back for 5 years couldn't possibly know this office? Are you questioning the new emperor? The emperor himself knows the layout of his office better than the chief steward. Emilia lowered her head, avoiding that. That sharp gaze. It's right there, in the drawer behind you. Spare stationery and official paper should be inside. Lighter items are on the top level, while the bottom drawer holds inkwells and pens. Official supplies are on the far left, arranged by color from dark to light. Emilia walked to the desk and pulled open the heavy wooden drawer. Her fingertips brushed over the neatly arranged inkwells. Is indeed as you said. Your Majesty. Cleden stood frozen, a muscle in his face twitching. She actually went to check. That matter-of-fact tone. Shouldn't she be surprised? Heavens, His Majesty knows even such trivial details so clearly. It's truly amazing. I'm too impressed for words. Cleedon stared at Amelia's back, his expression gradually darkening. Why isn't she praising me? Then, Your Majesty, this bottommost compartment is. The bottom left compartment is empty, Cleedon interrupted her. Next to it are the core documents concerning the territories. Be careful when opening the very bottom one. Those are the original deeds. The empty drawer above is for storing miscellaneous items. It was just as he said. His Majesty had clearly been away from the palace for 5 years, and today was his first time entering this office. Yet he knew everything about it. She suddenly covered her mouth with her hand. I've said too much. Indeed, just as Your Majesty said, it is indeed empty here. The chief steward has always been meticulous in his work. He must have maintained the layout from the late emperor's time. As the master of the court, it is natural for Your Majesty to know it like the back of your hand. Please forgive my ignorance. This was clearly praise. Cleedon pressed his hand tightly over his mouth and nose, his green pupils trembling violently. But why did it sound so grating? Huh. Cleedon let out a short sigh. That's enough for today. Go back and rest. Amelia bowed, her gray hair falling over her shoulders. Then I will report to the chief steward first and take my leave. The chief steward will come running. Cleedon waved his fingers, signaling her to leave. There's no need for that. Get out. Your Majesty. Amelia stood her ground, completely unruffled. I have a duty to report everything that happens here to the chief steward, including the fact that you are resting alone. If he rushes over because of it, I cannot stop him. Unless you have other orders, which I will obey. Forget it. A vein throbbed at Cleedon's temple. Don't rest. Go search yourself. Amelia spoke again. Your Majesty? What is it? Cleedon gritted his teeth, his green eyes filled with agitation. If I do it myself, I might touch something I shouldn't. This is Your Majesty's sacred office. If there are necessary rules, please instruct me. Things that must not be touched do exist. Necessary instruction also exists. And that the emperor is sacred is also a fact. Amelia's logic was flawless. She didn't leave a single opening for rebuttal. Every word was impeccable. Cleedon clenched his fists, unable to even argue back. She was efficient, cautious, in perfect control of her emotions. Her conduct was capable, and her etiquette was flawless. This was just the emperor's own subjective evaluation. Amelia Valletta. Cleedon clenched his jaw, his green pupils contracting slightly, a flush creeping up his cheeks. As expected, this woman is utterly troublesome. As a newly enthroned emperor, I will tolerate her with my broad-mindedness, no matter how troublesome she is. Amelia, except for this desk, you may touch everything in here. Check the rest yourself. Amelia stood with her hands lowered, then folded them in front of her. Thank you for your instruction, Your Majesty. She turned and walked toward the bookshelf, her movements without a hint of hesitation. Her voice is like a squeaky toy. Cleedon stared at her back, yet her tone is so calm and composed. Her movements are as swift as a squirrel's. Cleedon watched her figure. A northern fairy? No, a general fairy would suit her better. Amelia's fingertips slid across the drawer. Rummaging through papers, she moved without a sound, as if walking through the monster-infested forests of the north. Is it because she grew up in a place like that? Cleedon propped up his chin. The north, that barren land infested with demonic beasts. Red wild beasts crawling in the dark, flicking their long tongues. Those are memories from my exile as the crown prince. The lifestyle of northerners is harsh. Their words and actions are usually very restrained. Cleedon pressed a fingertip to his lips, his green pupils trembling slightly. She fits perfectly with that memory, without a single discrepancy. A typical northern woman. Cleedon gazed at her, her silhouette reflected in his pupils. If that's the case, why does she still irritate me so much? Amelia moved about the room, her fingertips brushing over the bookshelves. Cleedon sat behind the desk, his gaze following her back. She looked very focused, faithfully carrying out her duties, as if she had forgotten there was another person in the room, completely ignoring the emperor's presence. She's actually staring at those miscellaneous items instead of admiring me. Cleedon's face darkened. How is this possible? Ever since my voice deepened, no matter which banquet hall I appeared in, those women would go crazy for me. The banquet hall would fall into chaos, the noble women around me exclaiming in awe, I must see His Highness the Crown Prince. He's getting more manly by the day. Cleedon walked slowly into the hall. They always let out these kinds of screams, even tripping because they were holding their breath, falling over in rows like dominoes. The men were no different. Young nobles would stand frozen, their eyes filled with desire and jealousy. Yes, I am often compared to the sun. Cleton stood sideways, the light outlining his tall silhouette. I am a scorching sun that cannot be looked at directly. Everyone can't help but follow that light. Yet, an anomaly has appeared before me. Emilia raised her hands to cover her eyes, as if the sun had never risen before her. Cleton stared at her back, a fingertip pressed to his lips. What exactly is broken in this woman? No, there must be another reason. Cleton's pupils contracted suddenly, his fingertips pressing hard against his jaw. For example, resentment. She's from Valletta. Perhaps she witnessed my crime with her own eyes 5 years ago. Cleton tilted his head, staring at Emilia's back. It would be reasonable for her to tremble when she sees me. But I've never seen Emilia. Cleton recalled the blood on the Valletta border. He had confronted the Marquis of Valletta and his son, but he had never come face to face with Emilia Valletta. Have we met somewhere? Cleton suddenly raised his right hand, his fingertips hovering in mid-air, his pupils contracting in shock. Could have been at the old stream in the north. Did she see me then? By the old stream near my residence during my exile, Cleton stood bare-chested in the water, droplets sliding down his muscular contours, raising a hand to brush back his wet golden hair. Figures moved behind the trees. The women of Valletta were peeking from behind the trees. Those women gathered to peek at me. Emilia might have been among them. No, absolutely not. Emilia Valletta was not among the women who peeked at me. In this world, no woman, after seeing my perfect naked body, could still put on such a cold face. Does she hate me just based on rumors? I admit I was like a rogue back then, but I held back the demonic beast nest and fulfilled all my duties. I actually feel a little wronged. Your Majesty. Emilia walked to the desk, her slight bow interrupting his thoughts. Are you finished already? Cleton's gaze rested on her calm face. Is the assessment complete? Yes, Your Majesty. Thanks to the Chief Steward's systematic arrangement, I was able to grasp the layout easily. She's actually praising the Chief Steward. Cleton let out a cold laugh. Perfect. Emilia Valletta. Why is this lowly woman so cold to me? It's impossible to grasp everything just by looking at the office once. She'll show a flaw soon enough. Also, the necessities for clerical work are all here. However, there are no tools for maintaining Your Majesty's accessories. I will immediately order them to be prepared. Cleton's pupils dilated in shock. What is with this woman? The late emperor, due to old age, had stopped wielding a sword many years ago. She actually noticed such a detail. There are indeed no maintenance tools here at the moment. Precisely. She not only checked what was present, but also noticed what was missing. It's terrifyingly perfect. Since the equipment assessment is complete, Emilia lowered her eyelids slightly, her hands hanging naturally at her sides. From now on, I will focus my attention on Your Majesty. Focus on me? Cleton was taken aback. How can she say something so embarrassing with such a calm face? Enough. You may leave now. Cleton cleared his throat. I'm returning to my chambers as well. As you command, Your Majesty. The next day, before the door of the Oval Office, Emilia reached out and placed her hand on the doorknob. She took a deep breath. His expression wasn't good yesterday. What should I do to avoid angering His Majesty? Is working harder the only way? The door hinges creaked dully. Emilia stepped into the room. Miss Emilia. Emilia folded her hands in front of her, returning the greeting politely. Good morning, Chief Steward. Before His Majesty begins his duties, the Chief Steward gestured to the man beside him. For the next few days, Chief Administrative Officer Clavel will be in charge. He will guide you in understanding the current state of the Empire. Emilia gazed at the stack of paper documents. The quantity was even larger than expected. Can I finish it all today? The heavy door was pushed open again. Cleton strode into the office. Your Majesty, you've arrived. Cleton leaned over the desk with one hand, examining the spread-out map. We'll be finished soon. Miss Emilia, the Chief Steward leaned close to her ear, whispering instructions. Go and prepare some tea. This is the first task assigned to me. I will pour my heart and soul into it, preparing the most perfect pot of tea. The teapot was placed in the center of the tray, 2 porcelain cups arranged neatly. Steam rose slowly from the spout. Everything was ready. Let's begin, Chief Administrative Officer Clavel. As you command, Your Majesty. For Your Majesty's glorious first day of work, I will first explain the current situation in each of the Empire's territories. Clavel spread his hands. Significant changes have occurred over the past 5 years. I will provide a detailed explanation of these parts. Administrative Officer Clavel, Cleton's lips parted slightly, his voice cold. Yes, your majesty. Clavel abruptly straightened his back, cold sweat seeping from the nape of his neck. I said begin. Cleton lowered his eyelids, his fingers pressing on the edge of the document. As you command. Your majesty, then about the blue ink. Yes, it's here. Emilia quickly stepped forward, reaching for the inkwell on the shelf. She handed it to Clavel. Thank you. Clavel took the bottle and steadied his breathing again. The document on total grain production, the file on the Roberto Viscounty, and the trend data for the last 5 years. That hardcover history of the empire. Cleton took the handed-over document. Were the specific numbers for grain production? That's in. Clavel stammered, turning around, his eyes searching the room. In that stack of files in the middle of the bookshelf. The brown folder. Emilia pulled the file from the bookshelf. Not bad, Emilia Valletta. Cleton tilted his head slightly, his gaze looking down. Emilia looked up abruptly, meeting those green eyes. Her breath caught. Did you say something just now? Just now. Cleton looked down at the document, his brow furrowed slightly. The chief administrative officer, Clavel, is completely inept at public speaking. As you command, your majesty. So, regarding the output of the last quarter. No, regarding the utility, economic feasibility in terms of efficiency, and also the performance gains related to price. Clavel was incoherent, his hands gesturing wildly in the air. We need to establish measures for comprehensive growth. To show you more simply. Oh, blue ink. I was just going to listen and be done with it. Cleton closed his eyes, his Adam's apple bobbing slightly. But my capable maid. Emilia walked in with a tray, standing by Clavel's side. Whenever his train of thought broke, she was always there to perfectly support him. Cleton gripped the report in his hand, his knuckles turning white from the force. The paper crumpled in his palm. Huh. The chief administrative officer doesn't even have a chance to make a mistake. Cleton stared at Emilia's profile, his gaze darkening in the shadows. Huh, is the chief administrative officer that interesting? More interesting than me? Since I've finished confirming these tools, from now on, I will focus all my attention on your majesty. You just said yesterday you'd focus on me, and now you dare to lie. Anyway, continue. Chief Administrative Officer. Cleton strode forward, closing in on Clavel. Ah, okay, then about the next part. No, I want to hear the previous part again. I'll explain it briefly. Clavel raised a hand, trying to speed up. No, I want to hear the specific current situation. Cleton's eyes were sharp. So, what exactly is the grain production? About that brown folder. Clavel stammered. She precisely timed the administrative officer's predicament. Her focus and memory are both outstanding. Emilia, but if you were that focused on me, you should have noticed my charm long ago. Not looking at me is a desecration of your duties as a maid. More than that, it's disloyalty to me. Cleton turned around, facing Emilia directly. You're wrong, Emilia. Valletta. Emilia remained silent. Excuse me, what did you say? What do you mean, your majesty? Clavel's gaze shifted between the two of them. I need the grain tax records from previous years. The light brown file folder. Your majesty, the document you're looking at now is that file. You're saying I'm wrong? Cleton looked down at him, his eyes cold. Chief Administrative Officer, step back. I am currently discussing the annual grain tax with my maid. Why is he talking to a maid of all people? Clavel froze on the spot. I'm the one reporting on the work. As you wish, your majesty. I will go check at once. Cleton stood in silence, watching the retreating figure. That document was correct. Why is he angry? Perhaps because he's been away for so long. He made a mistake. Emilia turned to leave, her high heels clicking on the floor, making a crisp sound. I need to reorganize the files to make them easier for him to look through. This file folder seems to be the right one. Your Majesty. Cleton took the envelope, his fingertips rubbing the rough surface of the paper. Excellent. We've finally found the correct data. Clavel let out a dry laugh. This office is as well prepared as one would expect. Then, I will continue my report. According to the tax rates in the data, there is one point of particular note. Clavel's voice echoed in the room. Cleton stood frozen in place, cold sweat trickling down his cheek. To do something like that right there, I can't believe I made such a foolish mistake. He even stepped back for my sake. Even though I brought him the wrong document he requested, he didn't take back the correct one in front of everyone. Instead, he naturally placed it in my hand so I could switch them smoothly. To think he would be so considerate towards me. Is she just accommodating me because I'm the emperor? No, it's not like that. She's the first woman to ever shake me like this. Look at her expression. Cleton narrowed his eyes, staring at Emilia in the distance, completely unfazed. Emilia stood quietly, her gaze fixed straight ahead. Is she unharmed, or does she simply not care? Your Majesty, are you listening? Clavel leaned forward, cautiously observing Cleton's expression. I'm not listening. Cleton whipped his head around, letting out a roar. Why, yes, sir. Clavel flinched, shrinking back and agreeing repeatedly. Don't you think these two places on a map are strange? Cleden's fingertip tapped heavily on the desk. Huh, so suddenly? Clavel stood stunned, staring at the spot Cleden was pressing. The first region is suffering from a drought, so they're paying their taxes with wool instead of grain. They've also requested aid, saying their food situation is getting worse. Cleden's brow furrowed, his gaze fixed on Clavel's face. Why is this? Why doesn't Amelia pay any attention to me? It's like this almost every time. Why is that? Is that so? Clavel hunched over. Why is he asking me things he should be asking the Lord? Amelia stood quietly nearby, her hands folded in front of her, her gaze as calm as still water. There it is again, that expression. Cleden narrowed his eyes. That overly calm expression. Look at this lake. Despite the distance, this region shares a water source with the other one. In other words, they've been barely surviving on dairy products, completely unaware that their water source was being cut off by the other party. So that's how it is. Clavel cupped his face in his hands, his eyes wide as he stared at the map. But in years when the grain production of both territories was stable, the taxes paid to the royal family also reached their peak. So, shouldn't we solve this problem? Oh, profits will increase. Wonderful. Clavel covered his mouth and nose with his hands, his eyes shining. I must intervene and mediate, have them share the water source from now on. This is a sign that the empire is about to prosper. Just because of sharing a lake? Cleden turned his head, looking at him doubtfully. No. It's because of your wisdom, Your Majesty. Clavel looked up, tears welling in the corners of his eyes. Honestly, when you were the crown prince, you really made me worry sick. Clavel raised a hand to cover his mouth and nose, sniffling. Cleden stood to the side, watching him with a blank expression. Here, please use this handkerchief. Amelia offered a piece of white cloth, holding it out to Clavel. Thank you. Cleden's gaze fell on their hands as they exchanged it, his pupils constricting sharply. His face darkened. Clavel took the handkerchief. Today's meeting was very productive, Your Majesty. He dares to blow his nose. Cleden stared intently at the handkerchief. On my maid's handkerchief, one that even I have never received. I see. Tomorrow, we'll see if he can still perform so well. Why is he suddenly angry again? Clavel froze, a drop of cold sweat trickling down his temple. He's been staring at that maid for a long time. Could it be that her earlier mistake angered His Majesty? I'd better be careful. Ahem. Clavel let out a dry cough, trying to break the dead silence. About that maid's mistake earlier. Clavel leaned close to Cleden's ear. I will report it to the chief steward. What nonsense are you talking about? Cleden roared. Didn't you see how focused she was on the chief administrative officer just now? How excellently she does her job. Cleden's gaze was locked on Amelia's back. This feeling is so frustrating. It's driving me mad. His Majesty's behavior is abnormal. Clavel glanced sideways, his peripheral vision catching Cleden's profile. Could it be that as his wisdom grows, his mood swings have become this drastic? I must shorten tomorrow's lesson. Your Majesty, Amelia called out softly. I apologize for offending you with my mistake. Amelia bowed deeply. I will do my best to correct my shortcomings, so please forgive me. Shortcomings? You have no shortcomings. You may leave. Your magnanimity is as deep as the ocean, Your Majesty. Clavel clasped his hands together. The chief administrative officer should leave as well. Correct her shortcomings? Amelia, just how much more perfect do you want to become? Your Majesty, are you not hungry? The chief steward bowed slightly. I will go prepare some refreshments. That won't be necessary. Amelia needs to rest too. Cleden raised a hand to his forehead, closing his eyes. I'll return to my chambers for today. Today was Amelia's first day on the job. The chief steward followed closely behind Cleden. What did you think of her performance? If there are any shortcomings, please be sure to tell me. I will ensure she is properly trained. Shortcomings? Cleden stopped walking. There are none. Nothing of the sort. Is that so? That's a great relief. The chief steward narrowed his eyes and smiled. Originally, I was worried about Miss Lorigade being in charge of the office. But Miss Amelia also. The problem is, her spirit is too vigorous. She's not suited for life in the capital at all. Cleden spun around, his eyes fixed on him. In the Imperial Palace, isn't that a huge advantage? Of course, being able to reattach a broken neck is certainly an advantage, but... Cleden let out a low hum. Your Majesty, that's right, just as you said. She is full of strengths, possessing countless virtues. That's what makes it even more frustrating. The chief steward walked alone down the long corridor and sighed. It's truly daunting. I hope what His Majesty said just now was sincere and not sarcasm. I wonder if Miss Amelia is crying. Old memories surfaced in his mind, back when His Majesty was still the crown prince. The joy of the maids assigned to his side was always fleeting. On the very first day, they would scream and cry because of His Majesty's pranks. I thought he had become mature and steady, not like before. It seems I was mistaken, considering His Majesty's earlier glare and the way he scowled at the abdication ceremony. His Majesty clearly finds Miss Amelia to be a nuisance. The chief steward stopped in front of the door and raised his hand to knock lightly on the wood. Who is it? Amelia opened the door. Chief steward. Miss Amelia, is now a good time to talk? Of course. Please come in. Amelia stepped aside, guiding him into the room. The chief steward studied Amelia. Usually, attendants come from powerful families, entering and leaving the palace only to gather intelligence. But Amelia was never arrogant, always remaining polite. Could this be the strength His Majesty was talking about? I see. If someone who annoys you is completely flawless, it can indeed be inexplicably irritating. Is this why His Majesty is angry? Miss Amelia, I'm afraid there's no way out for you. I heard you did very well on your first day. The chief steward sat at the round table, looking at Amelia opposite him. I don't think so. Amelia lowered her head. You're the only maid who didn't scream on the first day. The chief steward watched Amelia. In the end, he couldn't bring himself to say it. Not at all. I know you did your best. Thank you, Chief Steward. Amelia bowed slightly, a faint smile appearing on her lips. Is that all? People in the capital are used to expressing their emotions extravagantly. If His Majesty, who is accustomed to such praise, encounters the cold demeanor of the North, it might lead to misunderstandings. This is probably why His Majesty is frustrated. Don't be too nervous. If you feel uneasy, His Majesty will notice it too. Amelia looked up. Is His Majesty angry? Actually, he seemed a little. No, it's not like that. If he were truly angry, I would tell you directly. All right, Miss Amelia, are you worried that His Majesty holds a grudge against the Valletta territory and the border count of Valletta? His Majesty is indeed hard to read, but he is actually more magnanimous than he appears, and he is wiser than he lets on. I heard His Majesty found a solution just by glancing at the report. Amelia looked up, her eyes shining. That's right. That was truly amazing. The chief steward nodded repeatedly. His Majesty will surely become a great emperor. Don't you think so, Miss Amelia? If you could praise His Majesty's greatness more often, that would be even better. We are his subjects. Pleasing His Majesty is also a way of showing loyalty. If His Majesty is to rule with benevolence, I do not believe those who serve him should blind him with false flattery. Amelia's gaze was fixed forward, her eyes cold. To let emotion and friendship stand in the way and influence his judgment is a dereliction of a maid's duty and sheer negligence. Don't you agree? Indeed. Although that's true, yes. The chief steward's eyes widened, cold sweat beading on his forehead. As an office maid, I will assist His Majesty in focusing on state affairs. I will prove the Valletta family's loyalty through this. To think there's someone as unreasonable as His Majesty Cleton. For this stubborn northern woman, talk of pleasing the emperor is completely useless. The chief steward gave a dry laugh, raising a hand to wipe his forehead. Ah, yes, you're truly admirable. The chief steward hastily stood up to leave. Get some rest. Tomorrow is another long day. Chief steward. Amelia suddenly spoke. Thank you for coming to see me. Amelia smiled, her blue eyes curving slightly. The chief steward abruptly covered his mouth and nose, his pupils dilating in shock. She can actually make a smile like that. Chief steward. Amelia stood by the door, tilting her head in confusion. No, I'll be going now. The night was deep, a full moon hanging above the clouds. The imperial palace fell silent. The next day, sunlight streamed through the high windows of the office. Cleton stood by the desk, flipping through the documents in his hand. Amelia stood nearby, awaiting instructions. The chief steward stood a short distance away, lost in thought. His Majesty has many complaints about the chief steward today as well. Miss Amelia is completely focused. She even organized all the documents. There's really no need to work so hard, although it is necessary. Anyway, I learned from our conversation yesterday that unlike the other maids who have experienced His Majesty's temper, Miss Amelia doesn't seem to find him that frightening. On the other hand, His Majesty seems to be caught in some kind of awkward mood. From my 30 years of experience as chief steward, this looks more like a child's tantrum than hatred. I must clear up the misunderstanding between them. His Majesty mistakes the typical cold demeanor of a northerner for dislike of him, and Amelia believes His Majesty hates her because of the Valletta family's past. If this isn't resolved, I, the chief steward, will be the one with the biggest headache. The border count of Valletta is currently in the north fending off demonic beasts. He is Miss Amelia's father. I absolutely cannot let him worry about his daughter. You've worked hard today. You look very reliable. Miss Amelia seems to be adapting well today, too. To make such progress in just one day is truly remarkable. The chief steward narrowed his eyes, a gratified smile on his face. Cleedon turned his head, his eyes cold. I have high hopes for the future. So cold. The chief steward observed through his monocle, his pupils contracting slightly. I'm relieved to hear your positive evaluation. The chief steward's smile grew wider. In order to handle state affairs smoothly, maintaining a harmonious relationship with those who serve you is crucial. Miss Amelia has been praising you as well, constantly speaking of your majesty's greatness. She was truly in awe of the wisdom you displayed during yesterday's lesson. Oh, really? A shadow fell over the upper half of Cleedon's face, his green eyes glinting in the darkness. No one said anything like that, did they? The chief steward's spine went rigid, cold sweat trickling down his cheek. No one ever said that to me. The chief steward lowered his head, avoiding his gaze, his monocle flashing nervously. At times like this, his intuition is sharp. Your Majesty, she's a northerner, you know. Let me tell you how quiet northern women are. My wife used to live there. One day, she suddenly said, "Dear, I'm giving birth tomorrow." How is that possible? She didn't say a single word until she was about to go into labor. The chief steward waved his arms, bursting into a dry laugh. Cleedon gave him a cold, skeptical, sidelong glance. Based on my few conversations with Miss Amelia, she doesn't seem to be good at expressing her inner feelings. The chief steward's smile faded, his fingertips touching his chin, just like those people from the north. What can be done? She only just arrived. You have to give her time to adapt. Cleedon stared ahead, lost in thought. So she's not good at expressing her feelings. If that's the case, then my idea that Amelia hates me might be wrong. Based on my observations over the past 3 days, Amelia is not that kind of person. She wouldn't be easily swayed by the words of others. Even if people from the Valletta family spread rumors, she wouldn't blindly believe them. In that case, is it possible that she doesn't actually hate me that much? Your Majesty, as the saying goes, great minds think alike. Why not let her get to know your good qualities better? As long as she sees your strengths often, that she will eventually be won over. When those feelings accumulate to a certain point, her expression will naturally become more animated, don't you think? The reason I say this is because I have confidence. The chief steward's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. His Majesty Cleedon is extraordinary. If one gets to know him well, they will discover he has immense personal charm. It's just that no one has ever stayed by his side long enough to discover that charm. The first step to clearing up this misunderstanding is for your Majesty to be more tolerant towards Miss Amelia. The chief steward cleared his throat. Your Majesty, Miss Amelia needs time to adapt. She came to the imperial palace all alone from the distant north. The chief steward watched Cleedon's profile, his gaze probing. Imagine how scared she must be. You're indeed right. The North and the capital are completely different. Whether it's the geography, the climate, or the daily habits of the people, everything is completely different. Even if she came all this way alone for her family's interests, it's by no means easy. That makes sense. That sense of distance is probably deeper than your Majesty imagines. You must first close that gap. Considering my inherent dangerous nature, that will probably be difficult to overcome. Cleedon's eyes darkened into shadows. It's been 5 years since we've seen each other. Cold sweat trickled down the chief steward's temple. Adapting is harder than I thought. What I mean is to make Miss Amelia less nervous in your presence. The chief steward suggested in a low voice, bowing as he followed behind. That's right. Cleedon whipped his head around. Those young ladies are at a loss before me because they're completely overwhelmed. Overwhelmed by my charm. The chief steward froze on the spot. So, I just need to show her my charm. Kindly and slowly, Cleedon turned his face, a confident smile spreading across it. This way, all problems will be solved. To sense the other's resentment through their lack of reaction. This is a perfect method. Cleedon strode forward, his cape billowing behind him. The reason I care about Amelia's attitude isn't just because she hasn't discovered my charm yet. The memories of my 5 years of exile in the desolate lands of the north. I want to erase them completely. I never want to see anyone look at me with that kind of contemptuous gaze again. Well done, Chief Steward. Cleedon spun around, gripping the Chief Steward's shoulders firmly. WH, what is it? The Chief Steward's body went stiff. He stared wide-eyed at the monarch before him. This will be a great help to me. Cleton smiled, his golden hair shimmering in the light. Your Majesty, it is my honor. Miss Amelia, I'm sorry. I think I've messed things up. The last day of training with Administrative Officer Clavel. In the office, leather shoes echoed dully on the wooden floor. Amelia stopped, watching the figure at the end of the hallway. Good morning, Your Majesty. Cleton approached slowly, one hand on his forehead, golden strands of hair falling through his fingers as he let out a low laugh. Amelia stood still, her blue eyes watching him. Her expression was calm. Your Majesty. Cleton looked up abruptly, sweeping his hand back through his hair to reveal his full face. A confident curve played on his lips. The weather is nice, isn't it, Amelia? Indeed it is. The weather is indeed very good, Your Majesty. I will go prepare some tea. I'm really looking forward to the tea you prepare, Amelia. Cleton gave a thumbs up, his golden hair trembling in the light. What is going on? The clinking of porcelain made a crisp sound. Amelia stood at the tea table, her fingers holding a silver teaspoon, mechanically stirring the liquid in the cup. Seriously, what was that? It's the first time in my life I've seen a smile like that. It was dazzling, but so over the top, it was uncomfortable. Not just a little. It was very uncomfortable. There must be a word to describe this. Amelia tilted the teapot, the brown liquid pouring into the strainer. Beautiful? Grand? No, that's not the feeling. Amelia's eyes suddenly widened, her blue pupils trembling. I've got it. Perfect. It was simply flawless. Amelia held the teapot high, the stream of water landing precisely in the cup. It was so perfect, it even felt inhumanly cold. So this is the smile of someone from the capital. It's truly different from the people of the North. In the North, there is only disastrous cold and eternal hunger. Northerners' nerves are always on edge because the monster tides can destroy everything at any moment. The kind of perfection feels strange and uncomfortable. Amelia, with her back to Cleton, mechanically repeated the motion of pouring tea. Wow, perfect. So perfect. To think he's such a perfect person. Cleton straightened his back, his golden hair shimmering under the lights, his smile like a meticulously carved statue. I'm so looking forward to it. Will Amelia hand it to me? Amelia's movements froze abruptly. Please have some tea. Amelia held the saucer with both hands, offering it to the man before her. Thank you. I will enjoy it. Cleton tilted his head back, his Adam's apple bobbing as he drank the tea in one gulp. His golden hair glinted in the sunlight. Cleton closed his eyes, letting out a thoughtful hum. How does it taste? Perfect. While not truly perfect, it's good enough. Cleton lowered his eyelids, his fingers stroking the warm cup. I absolutely cannot lose my composure at a time like this. How is it? Amelia, my proactive empathy, and this perfect smile. Cleton straightened his back, waiting for the expected praise. Any moment now. Amelia held the empty saucer, her blue eyes showing no emotion. What's going on? Why does she seem to be ignoring me? Cleton stood frozen, holding the teacup. His smile is too perfect. So perfect it's disappointing. Amelia's eyes trembled slightly. She didn't even dare to look directly at his face. Is it because she doesn't understand? She simply doesn't know what beauty is. How could a savage raised in such a desolate land have any aesthetic sense? What is this feeling? Amelia lowered her head, avoiding the blinding golden light, feeling a wave of dizziness. I can't just tell the Emperor to shut up. An official entered through the door. This is the construction budget sheet you requested for today. The official handed over a thick paper document. The shipping costs fluctuate greatly depending on the season. Please be sure to pay attention to the final price changes. All right, I'll keep that in mind. Cleton turned his head, a flicker of meaning in his green, almond-shaped eyes. As you command, Your Majesty. Well then, Amelia. Cleton spun around, looking at Amelia again. Yes, shall we begin? Cleton closed his eyes, his lips curving into a flawless arc. The special training to get you accustomed to my beauty. Amelia pressed her lips together. She fell silent. Did he take the wrong medicine? Why is he suddenly like this? Amelia held the teapot, her fingertips trembling on the handle. What's with that perfect smile? Yes, Your Majesty. Amelia lowered her gaze, avoiding the overly dazzling sight, not knowing where to look. Clavel cleared his throat, breaking the frozen atmosphere. Well then, Your Majesty. Clavel piled the thick documents on a desk. Today's lesson is relatively light. I will report on the major events that occurred in the Empire during the 5 years you were away from the capital. Clavel stood before the desk, spreading his hands towards the pile of documents. It's actually more like a briefing. Amelia approached with the tea tray, thankful that this was just a verbal lesson and she wouldn't have to personally hand over those documents. But another kind of unease spread in her heart. That perfect smile. That sweet voice. All this is too much. And of all days, today, why did he suddenly become like this? This light is too blinding. It's impossible to even open my eyes. I'd rather he loudly complain about hating the North. At least then I could apologize. Although this looks like a domestic affair, it's closer to a factional struggle between two major powers. Clavel pointed at the document, explaining the situation to Cleedon. Cleedon turned his head, maintaining his flawless smile. She's still avoiding my gaze. Such a stubborn woman. Your Majesty. Clavel's face turned red as he loudly declared, the affair between the two great houses of the South has escalated into a territorial war. This is both a territorial dispute and the most interesting topic of gossip in high society. Cleedon looked down at the official document, his brow furrowed. That's right, the most interesting topic of gossip in high society. If I fail socially because I wasn't listening, Emilia Valletta, it will be all your fault. Of course, the responsibility is mine. I've hardly ever tried to please anyone in my life. Charm and status have been in my hands since birth. And yet, Cleedon turned his head, watching the woman at the other end of the long table. Emilia kept her head down, staring at the tabletop. This is the first time I've ever tried so hard. She's showing no reaction at all. She's even ignoring me completely, maintaining that calm face the whole time. I have finished reporting on all the materials. Your Majesty, do you have any questions? The administrative officer shrank back, asking softly, if you know how to make a dull northern woman smile, answer me now. Cleedon glared at the administrative officer, his eyes filled with rage. No, and no, Your Majesty. Then I will take my leave, Your Majesty. The administrative officer gathered his documents and turned towards the door. Please wait, administrative officer. Emilia hurried forward, calling out to the old man who was about to leave. Ah, yes? The administrative officer stopped. He turned back in confusion. You've worked hard. This was a very enlightening lesson. Emilia folded her hands in front of her and smiled at the administrative officer. Is that so? That's wonderful. What? Cleedon stood behind them, the green eyes under his golden bangs instantly freezing. He stared intently at Emilia's smiling face. She just smiled at that old administrative officer and not at my perfect smile. Where on earth are that woman's eyes? No, at this point, her senses must be faulty. Cleedon raised a hand to the bridge of his nose and closed his eyes. Your Majesty. Emilia walked to Cleedon's side, calling out softly. The administrative officer has left. Are you feeling unwell? Chief attendant. What she needs is time. Your Majesty, let's go. Emilia. Cleedon stopped, turning his head to reveal a perfect smile. Emilia. Valletta. Cleedon walked down the long corridor, his leather shoes making a muffled echo on the carpet. What if this maid were a man? To have the mental fortitude to resist my smile. If that were the case, we would surely become formidable rivals. But that could never happen, because then the direction of the story would completely change. The military aristocracy, a noble faction that has grown powerful through privilege since the reign of the former emperor. During my exile, they strongly advocated for my execution. Now that I have ascended the throne, they remain my enemies, split between the factions of the Emperor Emeritus and the Empress Dowager. I must suppress their power to secure my throne and focus my energy on defending against demonic beasts and protecting my people. To that end, restoring relations with Valletta, the border count who guards the front lines, is crucial. To achieve this goal, there is no more suitable diplomat than her. This means I must make her aware of my charm and completely conquer her. This is also to reclaim my pride as a man. I can't waste any more time. Cleedon's green eyes showed his resolve. The only option is a frontal assault. Only one who has tasted meat knows how to appreciate it. Let me help you get used to my strengths. That's right, I'm going to move her. Today, I will build a mountain of moving moments. Your Majesty. Emilia followed behind Cleedon. This is... Emilia looked around, her pupils dilating slightly in surprise. 2 rows of Imperial Guard knights were lined up neatly. This is the training ground of the Imperial Guard. That's right, you're flustered, aren't you, Emilia Valletta? Cleedon was inwardly pleased with himself. That sturdy wall around your heart is finally starting to waver. What, are you afraid because there are too many knights? Cleedon slowed his pace, his tone probing. No, Your Majesty, it's not because of that. Emilia looked left and right, her expression clearly bewildered. Her gaze wandered along the edge of the training ground. This is a training ground, not an office. Emilia Valletta, What am I to do with you?" Cleedon let out a soft laugh. "Since you're an office maid, are you troubled because this place should be handled by a male servant?" "Emilia." Cleedon turned his head, gazing at Emilia's face. "Yes, Your Majesty." Emilia bowed slightly. "Just watch." Cleedon strode forward, his boots making a crisp echo on the stone ground. He gripped the hilt of his sword with his right hand and walked briskly to the center of the training ground. "Knight Commander," Cleedon called out in a low voice. The black-haired man closed his eyes and lowered his hands. "As you command, Your Majesty." "Let the duel begin." "That's right. I'll once again display my magnanimity." Cleedon turned his face to the side, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. "Emilia Valletta, I will definitely win against you." Emilia stood in the distance, her long gray hair stirring in the wind, her purple eyes filled with bewilderment. "Huh!" Cleedon let out a soft laugh, looking down as he drew the long sword from his waist. The sound of metal scraping against the scabbard was crisp. "I will forgive you." Emilia blinked, falling silent. "What on earth is going on? Forgive me?" Emilia stared at the back in front of her. "Who exactly am I asking for forgiveness from? If you would just tell me directly, I would certainly correct my mistake. His Majesty Cleedon is merciful, granting us the opportunity to spar." The knight whose name was called stepped forward. "Thank you, Your Majesty." The knights shouted in unison. The training ground. As a northerner accustomed to battle, this was a very familiar place. The Imperial Guard is indeed strictly disciplined. Emilia looked around. The budget here is far beyond what the North could compare to. If it weren't for those demonic beasts, Valletta's situation would be much better. Cleedon swung his sword fiercely. The sound of metal clashing rang out, forcing his opponent to retreat repeatedly. Cleedon lowered his center of gravity, sidestepping to avoid a heavy blow. His opponent let out a cry of pain, lost his balance, and fell backward. Father's swordsmanship is certainly extraordinary, but His Majesty's skill is even more astonishing. Emilia watched the field. This is just a warm-up. Next, Cleedon sidestepped nimbly, his golden hair shimmering in the sunlight. "Your Majesty, please be merciful." The young knight fell to the ground. He's smiling. I see him smile all day, but this is the first time he's looked so happy, so completely absorbed without any distracting thoughts. Those swings and cuts are clean and decisive. His Majesty truly loves the sword. A knight cried out in pain as his body flew through the air and crashed heavily into the wooden rack behind him. His Majesty won again. As expected of His Majesty, his swordsmanship has truly reached its peak. Cleedon unbuttoned his clothes, shrugging off his black outer robe to reveal his bare upper body. The lines of his muscles rippled in the sunlight, drawing gasps from the sidelines. Cleedon casually tossed the outer robe, which traced an arc through the air. His clothes. Just like that. That's right. Cleedon's green eyes glinted with amusement as he watched Emilia's reaction. "Were you watching closely just now?" Cleedon strode forward, bare-chested, toward the defeated man, his right hand gripping his long sword again. "Your Majesty, I've already lost to you." The young knight retreated repeatedly. Cleedon swung his sword fiercely, a powerful horizontal sweep with his right hand that generated intense wind pressure, knocking his opponent directly to the ground. Thus flew up at his feet. "That's right, now's the time." You're recording all of this with those eyes. Words like admiration and I can't even begin to describe my stunning beauty, right? Emilia knelt on the ground, tightly clutching the outer robe. Oh no, the clothes on the ground got dirty. She knelt on the ground, repeatedly patting the black outer robe. Cleedon froze in place, his half-naked back twitching slightly. Could it be that she wasn't looking at me at all? I'm a member of the Imperial Guard. Today, His Majesty personally visited the training ground. He was smiling the entire time and seemed to be in high spirits. But for some reason, his attacks were unusually fierce, his movements so exaggerated they were almost a performance, as if he were showing off his strength to someone. The person for whom he had such high hopes was, at this moment, unconsciously ignoring everything. This is treason. Quick, think of something. The attendants huddled in a corner, trembling. Are they going to chop that woman's head off? Emilia bent over, patting the black outer robe vigorously with both hands. Emilia stood up, holding the cleaned outer robe in both hands, her purple eyes downcast. Cleedon lowered his head. His eyes were full of confusion. He's dead. He's in big trouble. The young knights huddled in the corner, staring at the deadly silence in the center of the field, cold sweat trickling down their temples. Cleedon threw his head back, pressed his right hand to his forehead, and burst into wild laughter. The words I should say to Emilia are not "I forgive you." It's "watch closely." His Majesty laughed. The knights looked at each other, the tense atmosphere instantly dissolving. His Majesty is very satisfied today. It's been a long time since I had such a satisfying warm-up. Perfect swordsmanship and beauty. He has it all, even a magnanimous heart that doesn't sweat the small stuff. The knight commander looked up, his black eyes filled with fervor. It is our honor, Your Majesty. This is our emperor. Cleton turned and strode away. Let's go back to the office, Emilia. As you command, Your Majesty, Emilia replied with her head bowed. The two of them passed through a tall archway, their footsteps echoing in the empty hall. What should I do? Is he really planning to go back to the office like this? Cleton was striding forward, showing no intention of putting his clothes back on. Is it proper etiquette to help him get dressed? I'm not in charge of the training ground, so I don't know. I really wish the chief steward were here. You're finally looking at me properly. Well, what are your thoughts on seeing my perfect body? I know you don't dare to describe it with words. From now on, your life will become difficult because no other man will be able to satisfy you. But a ruler must sometimes be cruel, Emilia Valletta. I have decided to be a cruel person to you. Your Majesty. Emilia stopped and called out softly. What is it? Cleton turned sideways, his bare chest facing Emilia. Please return to your bedchambers, Your Majesty. Bedchambers? Cleton froze on the spot. Emilia Valletta, I didn't expect you to be so bold. Your current appearance is too improper. You cannot continue to perform your official duties. It would be best to change your clothes quickly, lest you lose face. It would be more embarrassing if you were alone, so I will escort you back to your room. Cleton froze on the spot. Hey, please hurry, Your Majesty. Isn't it the bedchambers? This feeling is strangely familiar. It was the winter of the year before last, a memory from his exile in the north. After finishing his sword practice, he walked out of the cave, heading aimlessly for the exit. A cold wind rushed to meet him, a blizzard battering his sweat-drenched chest. A suffocating impact. Cleton crossed his arms over his chest. Lose face. Lose face. She actually said I would lose face. Cleton put on his black formal attire, fastening the button at his collar, the word echoing in his mind. Cleton lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Do I feel ashamed? The next morning, sunlight streamed into the palace corridor. Good morning, Your Majesty. Good morning, Emilia. Cleton walked in, a polite curve on his lips. He seems calm today. What a relief. I should go prepare the tea. I didn't sleep a wink. Cleton sat at his desk and let out a heavy sigh. Emilia was brewing tea. Cleton stared at her back. The water temperature must be just right. Not too cold, not too hot. Precise and delicious. Just like her personality, unmoving under any circumstances. Emilia walked in with a tray and placed the teacup gently on the desk. Do you require anything else? No, that's all. The taste of the tea was impeccable. Cleton picked up the white porcelain cup and took a sip of the warm liquid. If that incident yesterday hadn't happened, perhaps I could enjoy this tea's aroma more. Emilia lowered her head to tidy up the tea set. Cleton narrowed his green eyes. Yesterday, at the training ground, all those gestures intended to win her over went to waste. Such a trivial mistake couldn't possibly hurt my pride. Any ordinary woman in this situation would have long been struggling between anger and infatuation, even writhing in agony. For her to so completely ignore my charm, it had no effect. This can only mean one thing. Her hostility towards me far outweighs any other emotion. Look, even now, she just stares out the window in front of me. So this coldness, she must be hiding something else in her heart. I will dig it out and crush it completely. I will make her and Valletta, the border count, both kneel at my feet and become my most loyal subjects. This is a battle of wills. Emilia. Valletta, Your Majesty? Emilia spoke softly. Do you have any orders to give? No, it's nothing. Cleton put down his teacup, his gaze shifting to the window. Tell me what you're looking at. The weather is very clear. I'm just looking at the sky. Indeed it is. Cleton stood up, his hands on the desk. Compared to the north, the capital sky is clearer and purer. The northern sky, that's a hue one can't forget. Even on a clear day, the northern sky has a deep blue, accompanied by a bone-chilling cold, as if the blue itself has frozen solid. You don't need to agree with me. Cleton turned sideways, a slight curve on his lips. It's only natural to miss the sky of one's homeland. But the starry sky in the north is truly the most beautiful. The starlight there is brighter and clearer than anywhere else in the empire. That's not it, Your Majesty. I'm just used to observing the weather. Emilia retracted her gaze. I have to pay attention to the crops and livestock to see if there will be frost or snow. As for the difference in the sky's hue, I didn't notice at all. Cleton stared at her in silence, oblivious to the subtle changes in the sky. Her senses are duller than the average person's. Very well, let the training begin. A curve formed on Cleton's lips. We're going outside. Emilia, the Imperial Garden. Sunlight filtered through the lush green leaves, dappling the white stone fountain. Ah, Amelia let out a soft gasp, her eyes widening slightly. Look at the color of those peacock tail feathers. Cleedon sat down on the lawn. Seeing such beautiful peacocks with your own eyes, what do you feel? Has your aesthetic sense awakened? The tail feathers. Amelia gazed at their luster. The colors are very beautiful. It seems the keepers are managing them exceptionally well, Your Majesty. These birds are very well cared for. Cleedon's smile froze. Keepers. Managing. She's actually talking about animal husbandry instead of praising their beauty. Cleedon gritted his teeth, a flash of frustration in his green eyes. As I thought, her aesthetic sense is as bad as a mole's. To be precise, her ability to process visual information is terrible. Cleedon raised a hand to his forehead. But that's fine. I will accept this weakness with my magnanimous heart. With training, she will definitely improve. His Majesty really wanted to see the peacocks. It's a relief to see him in such high spirits. Sit here beside me, Amelia. You'll strain your neck looking down all the time. He reached out and grabbed Amelia's wrist. Please forgive my impudence. You've come at just the right time. The peacocks are walking this way. 2 peacocks tilted their heads, the blue feathers on their necks trembling slightly as they approached the 2 people on the lawn. Indeed, look at their elegant posture. They clearly recognize their master. How Bushiro! Cleedon's words were cut short. A peacock suddenly lunged at Amelia. Oh my goodness! Amelia cried out. What should I do? I don't have any food on me. Cleedon froze, watching the absurd scene. Ha, that tickles. Amelia let out a light laugh, her eyes curving slightly, letting the peacock nuzzle her cheek. You freeloaders, eating and sleeping in my house for free. You ungrateful things. How dare you fawn over her? Cleedon gritted his teeth, glaring at the peacocks. These beasts are worth a private residence. You shameless creatures. Not only are you rude to me, you even dare to lay a hand on my maid. The steward ran quickly toward the lawn. That's enough. Your Majesty, please forgive me. I'll drive them away at once. Cleedon stared into the distance. Enough. Stand down. It seems Amelia is having a good time. Amelia looked directly at Cleedon. Your Majesty, I have something to say. Shall I guess? You're looking for the person in charge of the royal gardens, aren't you? Cleedon turned his head to look at the distant lawn. This is not the office, nor the bedroom, nor the training ground. Amelia lowered her eyelids. Serving your Majesty is the highest honor. Many noble heirs covet this position. Every position has rules that must be followed. Cleedon interrupted her. You're my attendant. Amelia looked up abruptly. Cleedon looked down at Amelia. Is that really so hard to understand? Amelia, holding 2 peacocks, looked up at Cleedon. Oh, I apologize for not realizing it sooner. I will report this matter to the Chief Administrative Officer. Cleedon let out a cold snort, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. I'll forgive you this once. Amelia bowed her head in thanks. Thank you very much. So His Majesty doesn't like to be served by others. That's why he specifically sought me out. Amelia held the 2 peacocks. I was so careless. I must report this to the Chief Administrative Officer. Cleedon narrowed his eyes, watching Amelia. Leah, you seem to be deep in thought. The lawn, the gentle breeze, the clear sky, and the quiet silence. Cleedon sat on the grass, looking up at the sky. Perhaps, since entering the Imperial Palace, this might be the first real day of rest. A cloth was spread on the grass, laden with cakes and desserts. A red strawberry tart gave off a sweet fragrance. Amelia looked at the table full of food. Your Majesty, I had the attendants prepare these. So eat. Cleedon gestured toward the food, indicating for Amelia to start. Amelia's eyes widened. He's making me taste for poison. This must be a poison-tasting assignment. Amelia picked up a fork, took a piece of strawberry cake, and put it in her mouth. Even in the Valletta territory, only elite soldiers could handle everything. His Majesty must want an all-purpose maid. Even poison tasting. Amelia's movements paused. It tastes very good. I feel guilty enjoying it alone. My younger brother back in the north would probably like this too. Amelia put down her fork and looked at Cleedon. Your Majesty, the cake is safe. You may enjoy it. Cleedon stared at Amelia. Is that so? Cleedon stared at the strawberry on top of the cake. What about the strawberry on top? It's been touched by many people. After you finish the cake, try the others. Amelia raised her silver fork. Understood. I will taste all of them for poison. Cleton watched Emilia eat. Seeing you eat with such relish, it seems there's no problem with your sense of taste. Emilia turned sideways, blocking the peacocks that were approaching the plate. No, little ones, this food belongs to His Majesty. You're wrong, Emilia. All of that is for you. Your emperor hates sweets. Poison was never a consideration. Emilia is slow to react to visual stimuli. The conclusion drawn from this is, if her vision is dull, what about her sense of taste? Cleton rested his chin in his hand. Humans have more than one sense. Emilia, women usually like the combination of picnics and sweets. It's a perfect match. This will lower her guard. A truly precise judgment. Cleton touched his chin and smiled. Do you think the Emperor's methods are limited to just desserts? After you taste the food from the royal chef, let's see if you cry. Emilia straightened her back, her expression serious. Your Majesty, all the cakes and desserts are safe. You can eat them without worry. Cleton turned his head to stare at Emilia. Are you telling me to just eat whatever? Describe its taste accurately. Emilia savored the texture in her mouth. Regarding this cake, I've never tasted anything so silky. The rich cream seems to have a hint of cheese fragrance. Emilia stared at the red raspberries. The fruit on top is very fresh and pairs perfectly with the cake. And this cake has an extremely rich texture. Cleton tilted his head, watching Emilia. Her tone is steady and dry, yet the description is so detailed. She's clearly immersed in it. Sharing food can bring people closer. This is an excellent opportunity, but I must approach slowly. Cleton closed his eyes. As an emperor, I should show magnanimity. Emilia lowered her head, avoiding his gaze. Your Majesty, I have finished my explanation. Do you require more information? Cleton pointed to the desserts in the distance. I'll eat that one over there. You will finish all the rest. I hate wasting food, but Your Majesty, for you to share food with a maid. This violates court etiquette. Cleton raised an eyebrow slightly. Oh, is that what the chief steward taught you? Cleton looked down at Emilia. Who is your emperor? Do you belong to the chief steward? I order you. It's just her favorite dessert. Cleton watched the woman gobbling down the food. Lest you regret it later. This is more than I expected. Emilia held the plate, forking the last piece of strawberry cake. I'm already full. His Majesty didn't touch a single thing. Could it be that this is the so-called revenge? The crown prince was exiled to the Valletta territory in the north. That was a time when his reputation was in tatters. Public opinion within the empire had hit rock bottom. Even if he had been killed then, the world would have tacitly approved. It was a time when he was completely abandoned by the empire. Knights from the Valletta family attacked him multiple times. Cleton has survived to this day through his own strength. Revenge should have been a matter of course, but he restrained his killing intent merely to avoid bloodshed. The new emperor's mercy is just another form of imprisonment. Emilia tightened her grip on the silver fork. Right now, the survival of my family rests on my actions. If filling my stomach can appease His Majesty's anger, I will do as he says. I am willing to bear all of this. Cleton passed her a glass full of water. Eating in such a hurry, is it really that good? Yes. Emilia calmed her rapid breathing. Yes, Your Majesty. This is a taste I have never experienced before. Cleton watched the woman before him, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. Extremely sweet. The taste of revenge. It seems you finished the prepared desserts. Shall we go inside? Emilia. Emilia lifted her face slightly, gazing at the man before her. What does the taste of revenge matter? As long as His Majesty's mood can improve, that's enough. As you command, Your Majesty. Emilia lowered her eyelids. His Majesty's revenge tastes very sweet. The stone brick castle stood under the sun. Inside the office, Cleton stopped in his tracks. He stared at the basket overflowing with candy on the desk. What is this? More sweets? Good heavens. I just wanted some snacks to eat while working. I didn't expect them to send candy to the emperor. I noticed before that you like sweets. Emilia, these are all for you. Cleton stood in the spacious office, sunlight streaming through the tall windows, elongating their shadows. Emilia lowered her head, avoiding his gaze. As you command, Your Majesty. Thank you. I will share them with the other maids. Emilia, Cleton called out in a low voice. Emilia's eyes widened abruptly. Cleton took a step forward. What makes you think the other maids can eat my candy? Cleton bent down, leaning close to Emilia's face. I only want you to eat them. Every single one must be eaten by you. His words mean that I did indeed misstep just now. A royal gift personally bestowed by His Majesty upon the Valletta family. How could I share it with others? Emilia bowed her head slightly. Yes, I understand. Thank you, Your Majesty. A smile appeared on Cleton's lips. I knew she would like it. Since today's official business is finished, Cleton turned around. I'm returning to my bedchambers now. You should go back and rest too. As you command, Your Majesty. That's right. Emilia held the heavy basket of candy. She walked through the red-carpeted corridor, drawing sideways glances and whispers from passersby. Is that His Majesty's taste? She actually received a gift. As long as tormenting me can please His Majesty, as long as I am the only target and not the Valletta family, I can endure this much. Emilia quickened her pace, walking past two whispering attendants, shouldering this burden alone. An attendant watched Emilia's retreating back. Where did she get such a precious basket? Did that maid save a member of the royal family? The candy basket sat on the wooden table, exuding a sweet aroma. Emilia stood before the table, staring at the basket overflowing with candy. She fell into thought. What should I do with this? Emilia looked down at the basket. I haven't even had dinner today. The sweet smell lingered in the air. I don't want to see any more sweets for a while. Revenge. If His Majesty's revenge on Valletta is only this, I can gladly endure it every day. But my heart aches faintly. This is something I can't control. You should have just gotten angry and said something vicious. Why did His Majesty's eyes look so sad? No, it's nothing. Emilia shook her head forcefully, trying to clear the chaotic thoughts from her mind. In the north, His Majesty Cleedon was known as a lawless man. Even after killing a divine beast, he remained extremely arrogant, running rampant without restraint. For someone like him, this kind of behavior is almost cute. For both the Empire and the North, this is a kind of relief. By the time His Majesty's revenge is over, I'll probably have gained quite a bit of weight. The corners of Emilia's mouth lifted slightly. Would Raglan be surprised? A knock on the door. Miss Emilia, are you in there? Chief Steward, what is it? The Chief Steward stood at the door. I heard you didn't come down for dinner. I was worried, so I came to check. Aye. His gaze swept to the candy basket on the table. The Chief Steward stared at the candy basket. That is what the Emperor Emeritus gives to the Empress Dowager as an apology gift after they have a fight. His Majesty originally wanted some snacks for the office, but the kitchen seems to have misunderstood. His Majesty didn't want the candy, so he gave it to me. The Chief Steward looked down, lost in thought. I see. In that case, I will instruct the kitchen to prepare something else for the office. Emilia bowed slightly. Thank you, Chief Steward. The Chief Steward watched Emilia, his gaze lingering on her pale face. Are you unwell? You didn't go to dinner, and you look pale. Emilia avoided his gaze and called out to him in a low voice. Chief Steward, is there anything you need, Miss Emilia? What must I do to gain His Majesty's approval? Miss Emilia, did something happen today? Not at all. The daughter of the Valletta family. How could His Majesty possibly like someone like me? The time has come. Miss Emilia, have you finally noticed His Majesty's true feelings? I truly want to be made useful to Your Majesty, but I cannot read Your Majesty's true thoughts. I fully understand Miss Emilia's position. However, the Chief Steward glanced at the candy basket on the table. What exactly are Nyland candies? They are treasures reserved for the imperial family on special occasions. Would someone really use such things to torment another? Did Your Majesty say anything else? He said I am his responsibility. Emilia clasped her hands in front of her, looking down at the ground. Because he asked if it was hard to understand, I couldn't ask for further details. The Chief Steward adjusted his monocle. Not official business, but His Majesty's responsibility. What exactly are His Majesty's intentions? Could it be that Your Majesty is projecting his hatred of the North onto Miss Emilia? No, it shouldn't be. In my opinion, Your Majesty has already accepted you, Miss Emilia. Judging by the look in his eyes, that is not the case. Chief Steward. Emilia shook her head gently, her gaze lowered. What was his look like? Emilia fell into deep thought. He looked very happy. The Chief Steward froze. What is she saying? This conversation is truly hard to understand. Something I don't know must have happened. Regardless, the Chief Steward held a fist to his lips and coughed lightly. Miss Emilia, gaining the recognition of the Empire's master is no easy task. Moreover, there is no way to confirm if one has been recognized. Emilia remained silent. Then she lowered her eyes. Was I too impatient? Indeed, a few short days cannot dissolve 5 years of hostility toward the North. Even so, a member of the Valletta family will never give up easily. To prepare for monsters that might appear at any moment, Father trains and prepares every day. As a Valletta, facing the malice of the Emperor named Cleedon, I must maintain the same posture. The Chief Steward smiled. Time will solve everything. Since you have already done your best, Miss Emilia. Emilia looked up, her gaze returning to calm. Yes, Chief Steward. I have been in this profession for over 30 years, Miss Emilia. If you anger Cleedon Alacaso, you are finished on that day. For a man who kills divine beasts without blinking, a mere maid counts for nothing. Of course, the current situation is different from angering him. I will provide temporary assistance. "It is past mealtime, Miss Amelia. Please enjoy these candies." Amelia looked down at the basket, looking hesitant. "I think I might not actually like sweets." Chief Steward. Moonlight shone through the curtains, tree shadows swaying on the glass. Leaves flipped through fingertips, making a crisp sound. First sending a candy basket, and now this state. Is it really time for me to retire? That Majesty is actually handling government affairs during his private time. If he has finally developed a sense of responsibility for the throne, perhaps he really can become a great emperor. Is there something you need, Chief Steward? The Chief Steward bowed slightly. "I came regarding that maid. As per your orders, Miss Amelia will serve as your exclusive maid starting tomorrow, including your office, training grounds, gardens, and even your bedroom." Cleedon closed the book in his hands and looked up at the Chief Steward. "Understood. Is she to be responsible for the bedroom as well?" The Chief Steward straightened up. "That is the duty of an exclusive maid. Then when does she rest? In that case, leave the bedroom cleaning to Mrs. Gallo as usual." Cleedon's eyes widened. "Did you make a special trip just for this? Your Majesty, if not arranged this way, Mrs. Gallo would lose her livelihood, and Miss Amelia would collapse from overwork." Cleedon stood up abruptly and let out a cold snort. "In fact, Miss Amelia is already exhausted. When I saw her just now, she was resting without even eating dinner. She didn't even touch the candies you threw to her." The Chief Steward squinted one eye, revealing a sly smile. "Of course, I know that was a mistake made by the kitchen. Impossible. She is very obsessed with sweets. She probably ate too many desserts during the day, so she had no appetite for dinner." Cleedon stood by the round table and sighed. "What a childish fellow." The Chief Steward lowered his head silently, humming thoughtfully. "She is very obsessed with sweets. I think I don't actually like sweets." The Chief Steward's eyes widened. "Who on earth should I believe? Did she say she likes candy?" Cleedon turned around, the corners of his mouth rising slightly. "Come on, Chief Steward. In this empire, is there anyone who would hate the candy handmade by Chef Villemoy? Nobles certainly cannot refuse that delicacy." However, the Chief Steward touched his chin with his hand. "Perhaps I should try telling a lie. My wife is from the north and has never eaten such things since childhood, so she feels that kind of pure sweetness is simply nauseating." Cleedon stopped smiling, his gaze turning cold. "However, if it were Miss Amelia to please your Majesty, she would probably say the basket tastes crunchy and delicious. After all, she is a loyal Valletta. Isn't that exactly why you made her the office maid?" Cleedon tilted his head slightly, looking down at the Chief Steward before him. "What do you mean? I thought you kept Miss Amelia by your side because you valued the endurance of Northerners, and through her, you intend to take revenge on the frontier count of Valletta." "Huh." Cleedon let out a short laugh, his eyes becoming obscure in the shadows. I am just providing the appropriate rewards to those who serve the Empire. Is there a problem with that?" "None at all, your Majesty." The Chief Steward bowed deeply. Cleedon turned away. "Go, Chief Steward. That will be all for today." He did not make his thoughts on the Valletta family public. Though his tone was stiff, his intent remains a mystery. "As you command, your Majesty. I shall take my leave." Cleedon turned his head to watch the Chief Stewards retreating back. The next day, inside the office after the court meeting, the door was pushed open, sunlight slanting in. "Your Majesty." Cleedon strode into the room, an official following closely behind. "Blockade the caves near the Valletta territory. It is impossible. The bridge leading there has collapsed. Construction is simply impossible." Cleedon stopped walking. "I ordered the blockade because a monster outbreak occurred in that cave. The bridge that was intact yesterday suddenly collapsed today. Do you think that sounds reasonable, Chief Administrator?" Cold sweat seeped from the Chief Administrator's forehead. "Your Majesty, the cause of the bridge collapse has not yet been determined." Cleedon stopped, his tone icy. "Exactly. Of course it hasn't been determined. In today's meeting, they seem to argue fiercely about the caves near the Valletta territory. I don't know the specific details. His Majesty is tormenting them. Although it is awkward, it seems I'm not the only one in a difficult position." Amelia let out a long breath, her tense shoulders relaxing slightly. "Your Majesty, Marquis Malwa Rune requests an audience." Marquis Rune? Cleedon turned his head sharply, frowning. "What is he doing here? Let him in." Amelia watched his profile, suspicion rising in her heart. Marquis Rune. How interesting. The corners of Cleedon's mouth lifted slightly, revealing a smile of unclear meaning. "He must have seen my conflict with those military nobles in the meeting just now. Those military nobles grew strong through privileges during the previous emperor's reign. They're a group of greedy allies. When I was exiled to the north, it was they who clamored for my execution. The Rune family is also a member of the military nobles. But since the eldest son, Manhwa Rune, inherited the title, their position has become elusive. He witnessed my conflict with the military nobles, yet still chose to come to my office. Manhwa Rune, what exactly are you planning? Manhwa pushed the door open and entered. Your Majesty, Manhwa Rune, the eldest son of the Marquis Rune family, a member of the military nobles. So this is Marquis Rune. Emilia tilted her head to observe the newcomer. I heard His Majesty clashed with the military nobles today. What is he here to do now? Cleton turned his face slightly, his mouth twitching upward into a smile. The performance of those fellows in this morning's state meeting was truly amusing. Cleton sat at the end of the long table. Blockade the caves near the northern Valletta territory. That is the source of the monster wave. Duke Brondel leaned forward. The gateway to the north, Holleton Bridge, has collapsed. Construction cannot proceed at all. That bridge could withstand even earthquakes, yet now it suddenly collapses. Duke Brondel must be plotting to defy imperial orders. Manhwa's eyes flickered in the shadows, saying nothing. Cleton propped up his elbow, fingertips against his chin. Truly regrettable. In that case, make the bridge repair and the cave blockade a coronation gift for we. Duke Brondel straightened his back, a smile hanging on his lips. This subject has already presented a gift. Did I not offer the Hezablon forest when your Majesty ascended the throne? Cleton lowered his head slightly, his gaze locking onto the other through his hair. That is only what you think. We did not receive the gift we wanted. Duke Brondel's smile froze. What did you say? We said we received nothing at all, Cleton said in a flat tone. His eyes were cold. Received nothing? Your Majesty, what do you mean by this? The Empire's elder, Count Dallas, pressed down on the Duke's shoulder. All right. Why not discuss this matter later? Cleton stared ahead, the corners of his mouth curving into an arc. He's crazy. He is truly completely crazy. Manhwa lowered his eyes and let out a sigh. Rumor had it that when he was in the Imperial Palace, he was a brilliant crown prince, even if not diligent, to demand gifts in the first meeting after ascending the throne. It's simply like throwing a tantrum. The Emperor is 24 years old this year. Did he lose 20 years in the north, leaving his mental age at 4? Having witnessed the chaos just now, yet coming here immediately. Is this to declare a political stance to your Majesty, wanting to stand on the Emperor's side? Manhwa stepped forward. Your Majesty. Cleton raised a hand to interrupt. Enough. Go wait on the sofa over there. Manhwa froze in place. Administrator, continue the report. How was the progress on Holleton Bridge and Hezablon Forest? The administrator's body trembled. To treat Marquis Rune like this. Regarding the Hezablon Forest presented by the Duke, is large in scale and rich in timber. Manhwa sat on the sofa, silently watching Cleton's back. That forest. The former Emperor Tasim granted it to Duke Brondel as territory. We are simply taking back what originally belonged to the imperial family. The Duke did not give me any gift at all. The administrator opened his mouth, his breathing becoming rapid. What kind of bandit logic is this? Cleton stared ahead, his eyes cold. Just repairing a broken bridge and filling a cave. Is that such an excessive request? This is a gift to celebrate our ascension. Your Majesty, what is Lord Holleton doing? To let the bridge fall into disrepair. Perhaps a 4-year-old child would be more mature than him. Am I right, Manhwa? Manhwa started, his body stiffening, and let out a confused sound. Manhwa stood up. Yes. Cleton withdrew his gaze and looked at the administrator. Chief Administrator Clavel, do you not have more urgent matters to handle? Clavel handed over a document. This is the construction estimate you requested. Transportation costs fluctuate greatly with the seasons. Please be mindful of price changes. Cleton's eyes became sharp in the shadows, judging by the situation at the government meeting. The cave construction budget I reported only to you a few days ago is now known to everyone. The administrative office is supposed to execute only the Emperor's orders. Why does information leak so casually? It seems everyone in the city knows. Chief Administrator Clavel lowered his head, his voice trembling. This subject will immediately take action. Cleton glanced sideways at the person beside him, his gaze icy. The Imperial Guard will enter the administrative office to conduct an investigation. We're sending them to assist you this time. However, the next time the guard enters the administrative office, it will be because you made a mistake, right, Chief Administrator Clavel? Chief Administrator Clavel's face turned pale. From now on, strictly pay attention to confidentiality. This subject will certainly obey. Clavel's voice trembled. I will keep in mind at all times that the administrative office exists only for your majesty. Cleton's expression returned to grimness. We will remember those words. You may withdraw. Yes, your majesty. Clavel bowed and quickly left the room. Amelia stood by the door, watching Chief Administrator Clavel's retreating back. It seems the Chief Administrator indeed lacks magnesium. His eyelid was twitching badly. Cleton looked at Amelia. Amelia, serve some tea for the Marquis too. Amelia bowed slightly. As you command, your majesty. Manhwa sat on the sofa, listening to the clinking of teacups. This silence is suffocating. The only thing moving in the entire office is that maid. Amelia lifted the teapot, her movement steady, to maintain such a calm demeanor under this high-pressure atmosphere. She is the only person I've seen in the palace today who hasn't been scared out of their wits. Perhaps because a maid from the north simply cannot understand these complicated state affairs, so she is fearless. Cleton walked up to Manhwa, looking down from above. You came all this way. Surely it wasn't just to stare at our maid? Manhwa froze abruptly, his heart beating violently. What are you saying? Is he asking seriously or mocking? It is completely impossible to predict this man's actions. Manhwa took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. Whether behaving like a 4-year-old or a tyrant, the person before him is ultimately the emperor. Those rumors about absurd scandals, evaluations of exquisite swordsmanship, the fanaticism of noble women towards him, and the crime of killing a divine beast. This is the entirety of my memories of Prince Cleton from my boyhood. They actually say he quelled the monster wave. Like other military nobles, I once thought the rumors of the prince defeating monsters alone were just ridiculous, exaggerated rhetoric. Some officials suspected the frontier count of Valletta, believing he secretly sided with the prince and advocated for an investigation into him. However, I at least believe that for the prince, as an abandoned member of the imperial family, to still step forward and suppress the monsters. That point deserves high praise. But I never imagined he would be such a despicable and childish person. This is simply the scene of an office destruction. Cleton is making a scene like a 4-year-old child. To think I staked the entire fate of the succession on such a person. I truly regret it. Manhwa reorganized his thoughts and looked up at the emperor. Your majesty, regarding the construction estimate for sealing the East Palace. Cleton rested his chin on his hand, his expression returning to calmness. Manhwa clasped his hands. You could have submitted it after our discussion ended, yet you issued the order to the administrative office first. Was it to spread the rumors in advance? To purge the spies in the administrative office? A hint of a smile appeared on Cleton's lips. Regardless of whether the order to seal the East Palace is actually executed, the emperor has already seized the initiative against the nobles. This new emperor is either a madman or maddeningly clever. If the imperial guards His Majesty sent are reliable enough, by tomorrow, the administrative office will likely have only 1 or 2 senior officials left. It's the same here. Now, there's only 1 person left in our room too. Manhwa stopped his movements. What did you say? Isn't it 2? Cleton corrected him. Amelia is the daughter of the frontier count of Valletta. Her status is sufficient to serve by your side. Your Majesty, I heard you drove away all the attendants from powerful families. This matter has already spread outside. If you continue to openly check the nobles like this, the backlash will only get stronger. Cleton turned his head sharply, his eyes cold. We don't care. Driving them away. Wasn't it because they did things deserving of being driven away? Keeping attendants from major families by your side was originally one of the means to maintain harmony with the nobles. Enough. For me, having Amelia alone is enough. Manhwa froze in place, letting out a short query. What did you say? Cleton raised his chin slightly, his green eyes revealing a chill. Did you not hear? We said having Amelia alone is enough. Manhwa remained silent. Is he even listening to me? Entrusting the future of the Rune family to this man. Is it really okay? Is this really the correct choice? Chief Maid, this is the position closest to the Emperor, and this position is the center of the battlefield. Amelia, there are no true friends in the Imperial Palace. Never get dragged into court turmoil, and do not attempt to protect our interests. Live like a shadow, then come home. This is your only obligation to the north and to me. Until you return, I will personally guard the fortress walls." Father's words meant he was unable to sleep from worry, because the imperial palace father knew was undoubtedly a hell. A living hell. I must remember this at all times. Work must be flawless. Emilia looked down to adjust her cuffs, clasping her hands in front of her. "But my existence must be like a shadow." Manhwa raised his head, his gaze locking onto Emilia. Cleedon leaned against the back of his chair, scrutinizing the man before him. "Marquis Manhwa, what exactly is your official business? Since you drank the tea Emilia brewed, your words had better be worthy of this cup of tea." Manhwa lowered his gaze. He is desperately protecting that maid, emphasizing that she alone is enough. Does he intend to purge all noble confidence? Before acting, I must confirm the Emperor's true intentions. To celebrate your Majesty's ascension, the Marquis Rune family presents the Lucas Pearls. Manhwa bowed slightly. "For this heavy gift, our family will be repaying debts for the next 3 years." Lucas Pearls. Cleedon repeated the term, letting out a short scoff. "Ah, you mean that palm-sized box?" Cleedon spread his hands, revealing a brilliant smile. "Try to please we with such shabby things. Isn't that too petty?" Manhwa choked suddenly, clutching his chest and coughing violently. Cleedon tilted his head, revealing a mocking smile. "Did you make this special trip because you were afraid we would extort more from you?" Manhwa steadied his breathing. "Since you have already guessed it, having the military nobles on your side is harmless and beneficial to your majesty. I came to propose a reconciliation. The Rune family's military force is indeed quite considerable." Cleedon stopped smiling. "But your territory is far in the extreme east. When we go to war with Brondel or other warlords, you won't make it in time at all." Manhwa maintained a stiff smile. "You haven't been back in the capital long, yet you are already calculating military assets." Cleedon locked his cold eyes onto the other party. "When we truly need to mobilize the Rune family, if you're not by our side, then what use are you?" We said, "Prove you're worthy of the tea Emilia brewed." Manhwa lowered his eyes, a layer of fine sweat seeping from his forehead. "Every time I speak with him, I feel my life force being drained." Manhwa trembled suddenly. "That maid, how on earth does she endure this oppression?" Emilia stood at the edge of the shadows, hands clasped over her abdomen, staring expressionlessly ahead. That look is simply like a vulture staring at a corpse. Manhwa avoided her gaze. No wonder she is the only one left by the Emperor's side. This woman is definitely not ordinary. "Marquis," Emilia looked down at the man, slumped in the chair. "You look like you are about to faint from a mental breakdown. I will keep an eye on you. Is your majesty always this unscrupulous?" Cleedon let out a nasal sound, leaning forward slightly. Cleedon raised his index finger to his lips, the corner of his mouth hooking into an arc. "Maybe. Perhaps it's not a rumor that the new emperor drives all the women in the empire crazy." Manhwa kept his face tight. "I'm about to go crazy too, just in a completely different sense. Since neither pearls nor the army can catch your eye." Manhwa lowered his head. "It seems the Rune family has no ability to please your majesty." Cleedon stared at the teacup. "Indeed." Manhwa's shoulders trembled. "Then may I take my leave?" Cleedon interrupted him. "No, that won't do. What on earth does he want?" Manhwa closed his eyes. Cold sweat slid down his cheeks. "Emilia, cover your ears for a moment. If it is a classified matter, your majesty, I will retreat outside the door." Cleedon stared at Emilia. "Where do you think you're going? Just do as told. Cover your ears and make an ah sound. That way you won't hear anything." Emilia froze in place. "Ah, is it his majesty's whim again? Live like a shadow, then go home." Emilia lowered her eyelids, her throat moving slightly. "All right, if it's just that, it's not difficult. This is my battlefield. I absolutely cannot back down. Then I'll turn around." Emilia turned her back to everyone and walked toward the corner, her high heels clicking crisply on the floor. Emilia raised both hands, tightly covering her ears. She closed her eyes and let out a long hum. Manhwa froze in his seat. What exactly is this situation? Has the Emperor's madness infected the servants too? "Marquis Manhwa." Cleedon's voice pierced through the scream, calling the other's name coldly. "What is your opinion of the frontier count of Aletta? To evaluate her father to my face, he actually made her do such an absurd thing." Manhwa exhaled a breath of stale air. It was so ridiculous he couldn't even get angry. If that man hadn't held the defense line, the current empire might have long ceased to exist. Thanks to him, the northern border has remained stable. Cleedon remained silent, his gaze fixed on Emilia's back. "What is she doing?" Manhwa held his breath. "Why doesn't he answer? I'm just staring at that maid for this kind of childish prank." His eyes are too serious. Manhwa stared at the Emperor. The noise turned into singing. "Your Majesty is actually listening to her melody." This is simply Emilia faced the long table, covering her ears, humming softly. Is that a folk song from the north? Marquis Manhwa. Clayton gazed at Emilia. Don't you think it's beautiful? Manhwa blinked. Yes, Your Majesty. It is indeed beautiful. Clayton closed his eyes, the corners of his mouth rising slightly. Correct answer. Manhwa froze in place. What did you say? You heard it. Clayton opened his eyes and leaned forward. Listen well. The one who destroyed Holleton Bridge was not Duke Brondel. The real culprit is someone else. I have already secured the evidence. Now you should leave. Go as quietly as possible. I want to listen to her singing a bit longer. Manhwa lowered his head. As you command, Your Majesty. What kind of conversation is this? If today's conversation leaks out, you should know where I will send the Imperial Guard. I won't hesitate just because the journey is long. Manhwa stood up abruptly, hands pressing on the table, and bowed his head. Understood. Your Majesty. Manhwa walked quickly toward the door. Former Emperor. I don't understand. Manhwa walked out of the room, letting out a long breath. Why didn't you tell me when you were alive that the Crown Prince is a complete and utter lunatic? The Marquis has left. Emilia lowered the hands covering her ears and turned to look at the empty doorway. Should I stop now? At festivals in the north, you were always the first to sing that song. How would you know that? During the festival, the taverns were talking about it everywhere. It would be hard not to know. Take this, Emilia. Clayton held out a red jewelry box. Yes, Your Majesty. Emilia answered in a low voice, taking the heavy wooden box. This is. Emilia stared at the golden pattern on the lid, her fingertips touching the cold texture.